All right, Brittany.
Hi everyone, good evening. So good to see so many faces here tonight. Thank you for being here. My name is Brittany Chevron. I'm a social worker here at the high school and I'm part of our Avon mental wellness team. So what I get to do here with students is support their mental health and well-being. And the way that we do that is through offering support in a small group format so that we can meet a higher quantity of students' needs. We are available to work with students based on a lot of different mental health and wellness topics, really anything that's going on with them. But we do have set curriculum for a few different types of groups, things like anxiety support, or helping students work on healthy relationships, or if a student has had a really important person in their life die, we can offer them grief support, as well as some other topics. So, and I also have a coworker here named Tahira Purifoy, who's here full-time as well as supporting students.
Jamie.
Hi there, my name is Jamie Dendler, and I am the therapist here at the high school with a partnership with Cummins Behavioral Health Systems. So they are a company that's in the community, a nonprofit that does provide outpatient services as well, and we're also in a lot of the Hendricks County schools, but I am a therapist specifically here at Avon High School. On my team as well, we also have a life skills specialist. Her name is Amanda Lynn, and she helps students with those general life skills such as coping skills, emotion regulation skills, social skills. So we share most of the same caseload. I work with students similarly to Brittany in regards to some of those areas that she mentioned, but more on the one-on-one setting through referrals through our guidance department.
All right, and now I'm going to make some introductions using a slide, and I have a little bit of homework to do. So one side is a description of proactive strategies to get school off to a good start. On the back, there's a place for some fill in the blank. So this first slide, if your student is in grades 9 through 11, shows the assistant principal and counselor by alphabet for your student. So for example, if you have a student with the last name A through GEN, Mrs. Beth Tharp is the assistant principal, so you would write that in if that applies to your student. And then Mrs. Bess has the very top of the alphabet, A through CHR. Mr. Doan has CHU through GEN. He says generation 2, so 2 gen. And then for the middle part of the alphabet, in grades 9 through 11, Mr. Hines is the assistant principal. Mr. Goings has GEO through KN, and Mrs. Wilson has KO through ORO. And then finally, the last third of the alphabet, 9 through 11, Mrs. Rodkey is the assistant principal. And then Mr. Ellis has ORP to SMI, and Mr. Thompson has the last part of the alphabet. So SMO through Z. So we're hoping that you can write down those names because they can be important contacts for you if you have particular concerns about your student. We also have deans who support our students. They're primarily responsible for making sure our kids get to school and can manage themselves during the school day, reporting to class on time, navigating like peer conflict, things like that, traditionally known as discipline. But they also are a part of the team that cares about your students. So again, we kind of refer to these as triads. And then for our seniors, see if this works here. Mr. Meyer has the entire senior class, so there's a transition for transition for our students. And then this part of the alphabet is broken up a little bit differently. Mrs. Rady has the top and bottom of the alphabet, so A through CLA, and then P through Z. So again, if your last name is toward the top or at the bottom. Mrs. Rady's the counselor. Mr. J, we call him Koskowski, has CLE through O. And Mrs. Garcia works with our students who are going to graduate at semester, or if we have any students who graduate in 3 years. And a lot of these awesome folks are coming in. Mrs. Rodkey, give us a wave. Mrs. Rodkey, Mrs. Tharp, Dr. Willis, introduce Mr. Hines. Mr. Shockley, our building principal, is back here too. A team of folks who really care about your student. In a way, you're experiencing some of what we did with our students at the start of the year. We had a class meeting, and so like Mrs. Rodkey organized a class meeting for juniors. Mr. Meyer organized a class meeting for seniors. Mrs. Tharp worked with our sophomores and Mr. Hines, our freshmen, and we had them all in this auditorium together. And one of the messages we said to them is, we care about you. This is a big place, but there's also lots of adults here who care about our students. Raise your hand if you're a parent of a freshman. Raise your hand for me. The freshmen have a particular extra support a couple times a week I want to make sure and mention, and that's our AIM mentors, our Avon Incredible Mentors. So each SRT has some juniors and seniors who've been trained on working with the underclassmen to help make their transition to high school as positive as possible. So they're not mental health experts, but if you think about it, there's so many things that we can do for ourselves and for our students to try to help things get off to a good proactive start. We want kids to feel accepted, connected, know how to navigate classes, how to interact with adults, how to interact with peers, and our AIM mentors are a part of that support. Next thing we'll talk about is maybe to revisit some of those proactive strategies. So we said there's one on the sides there, but if you had advice for parents right now, so I'm not talking about responding to a particular problem, but just good advice about helping students be as healthy mentally as they can be, what are some pieces of advice you might have? If anybody can start. Angie wants to, Brittany, Jamie, any of you?
All right, I'll jump in. So I think the biggest thing, especially at the start of the school year, that I would recommend for parents on this topic would be normalizing this topic in your home. You all are here this evening, so obviously you have some willingness to discuss this and talk about this, but if we're hoping that the students are going to be willing to engage in the services we're trying to provide, you all kind of set that first example at home that you can talk about these things and that you are supportive of those services. And I know that we are also very engaged with families and parents as well, making sure everyone's up to date. And so your willingness to participate in their mental health journey is more impactful than you could have any idea about. So that would definitely be my biggest thing, starting off the school year especially.
Thanks, Jamie. I would also encourage any parent or family who is feeling concerned about their child or student to reach out for help. I mean, we're all up here and we're getting to share with you tonight all the resources we have. And I know some families are not comfortable with their student participating in those things while they're at school. That's okay. We understand that. We can also help you get connected with community resources too outside the school. So please reach out if you're feeling like your student, you're noticing some signs and then that are making you feel concerned. We're happy to help you any way we can.
As a counseling department, one thing that we're really trying to hit hard starting off the school year this year is making sure that our students know who their people are, and that is in terms of all the faces that you saw, all those faces of those people on the screen there. Our counselors have been going into their SRTs and introducing themselves to the students, letting them know who those people are, whether it's the counselor, the assistant principal, the dean, even our administrative assistants. We want the students to know who those people are. I know with the freshmen and sophomores that they've already seen, we've given them a label to put inside of their agenda in case they ever forget who they can go to for support or help, or in terms of the counseling department, they can pretty much go to a counselor for just about anything. And so we've made the effort to know that. We're hoping that you can make note of that too, so you know who to reach out to when you have questions as well.
Something I would add is our teachers also are engaged with our kids on a daily basis, and they know to kind of keep an eye out for students. We talk about, and this is good practice as adults too, you never know what somebody else is carrying, and we really try as a staff to frame our concerns about kids, about what could be going on with this kid versus sort of what's wrong with this kid. So it was interesting when I spoke to each of the classes, students were really paying attention, and when I told them, your teachers care about you, and they want you to talk with them, whether that's your SRT teacher or your algebra teacher. So again, please know that you have a community of adults in the building who are tuned in to this topic. We've done some learning together as a staff that Mr. Shockley has helped to lead as well, and it's an important effort for us. I also also want to talk about just another support that's in the building, and then we'll continue. And again, if you're just coming in, hopefully you got a handout, and then the index card is intended for your questions, and so we want to get to those as well. I'll start moving this forward. Sorry, user error. Something that's unique at Avon High School too is we have I'll call it an organization more than a club, and this is on your handout as well on the back side. Bring Change to Mind is a student-led effort around mental health. Ava Lentz, Senior, is the president, and Mrs. Lebo and Ms. Hancock are the sponsors. They will begin to meet, I believe, this month at the latest in September, and they have done some great work around promoting healthy living and mental wellness and destigmatizing talking about mental health issues. So you might ask your student if they've heard of Bring Change to Mind, as the weeks roll by here, and if they have a particular interest. And you can certainly reach out to those sponsors as well. All right, let's talk a little bit more. You gave some examples, for example, Ms. Brittany, of groups that you have, and let's kind of walk through what happens when kids are encountering struggle, or what might be some common situations that come up. So Mrs. Creed, maybe we can start with the counselors, and what should parents know about the work that counselors do with students?
Like I said, counselors do a lot of everything, and so generally when a student is needing to see their counselor, it would be for some things like some conflicts with friends or with a teacher. There's some situational things that a student might want to come see their counselor about. If they've had a rough start in the morning and they're just not having a good day and they just need to kind of decompress and maybe go to the guidance office and spend a little time there and then talk to their counselor and then try to get them back to class. Anxiety is a big one. We have a lot of students that are dealing with anxiety, and so we try to work with those students and try to teach them some coping skills and things like that they can do with anxiety. And this would be probably maybe some new anxiety that a student might be feeling, maybe something that's not in the norm for them. So our counselors will work with them initially. Students come to us with stress, maybe some sadness, different things. Just pretty much anything that you could think of a 15-year-old, 16, 17-year-old student might be struggling with. And maybe want to go talk to somebody about. And so our counselors listen, they try to help coach them and just work with them and help them work some of the situations that they might be dealing with.
How about either Brittany or Jamie? Can you give examples of what does the work kind of look like, or what would be an example of a situation where you might get involved with the student?
Yeah, so we're in high school here, and one of the main things that are happening is students are learning how to engage in all kinds of relationships. Whether that's friendships or romantic relationships, it's really budding in a bigger way here. So one of the things that Ms. Purifoy and I support with students, as I mentioned, is helping our students identify what is a healthy relationship and what is not, and how they want to show up as their best self in those relationships. Sometimes we get asked to support students who might be exploring topics related to their sexual orientation or gender identity. We're here for anything going on with our students, and we definitely get called into in those more intensive need moments. So if a student is having severe anxiety, like a panic attack, we can go support that student in that moment and help them regulate and get them connected immediately with the help and support they need. Or if a student is actively suicidal, which is unfortunate but does show up here at school and with our youth, so we can come in those moments and make sure that we're getting the student connected with what they need.
And then for our services, like both of you said, kind of that array of anything that could potentially come up, but typically for the services that we provide, the referrals we get, the students do end up needing more of a diagnosable level in regards to their diagnosis of anxiety or depression. Once again, as Brittany mentioned, I'll do crisis assessments if necessary, facilitate hospitalizations if necessary, if we did have any suicidal ideation or behavior. But yes, my level is also pretty intensive, again with the one-on-one support for some of those things that come up that become a little bit more debilitating and really get in the way of their success here at the school.
If you look on the back of your handout, I do want to make sure that I mentioned there's a referral kind of flow chart. There's some arrows. And our point here, and part of the reason we want to make sure that you have the name of your student's school counselor, is we really want that referral process to start with the counselor. So, you know, give a senior at the top of the alphabet, Mrs. Rady would be your contact. Or in the case of 9 through 11, if my student's last name started with B, then Mrs. Best would be my go-to if I really had a significant concern that I wanted maybe to see what additional services were available. So if you see that on the back, that's what we want you to know about that process. Can you tell us a little bit more about that process, either Mrs. Creed and Brittany, Jamie, and as a parent and guardian, what information would be shared? Like how would I begin with that? And or what if a teacher had a concern about my child? Would I be notified? Can you talk me through that referral process?
I would say after the counselor had been meeting with that student for a little bit and maybe seeing some things that might be helpful for Brittany and Jamie's programs, that would be the time that we would probably be making connections with the parent and talking with them about some things that maybe we're seeing here at school. And then we do have kind of a process of referral to both programs, and so there would be some paperwork that we might send home with that student for Cummins referral or referring to some of Brittany's groups and things like that. So it does kind of start with the counselor meeting with that student, just as they get to know that student and start recognizing some things and things that might be beyond what the school counselor is able to do. Then we would start the referral process at that point.
And we kind of like to think of it as a ladder here. So the first step on that ladder is talking to your guidance counselor and seeing if the level of need that the student is having can be met there. If the student is reporting that they're having a higher need to support their mental well-being, then that's when they would probably refer up to me at the mental wellness level. However, a student might report right away, like, this is really severe, this is intense. We might bypass me at that second tier and go right up to Cummins Behavioral Health with Jamie. And then we collaborate a lot too. So say a student's been working at that highest level of support that we have here in the school building, but they're doing really well. They're being successful, but they're not ready to just like go back into class and be in the general population again. We might step them down so that after they're doing that intensive individual support, they come work with myself or Ms. Purifoy doing a small group with other students. And sometimes it happens too that I work with a student and what they need is more than what we offer them in that group. So that might be a time where I talk with the parent and say, hey, are you interested in having your student participate in one-on-one therapy here at school with Cummins?
Yeah, I mean, that covers our referral process pretty well. It definitely starts and kind of builds depending on the level of need. That referral process is not necessarily required also for parents. If you did, get on the Cummins website and call the main line and say, I want services for my child at school, that's another way. The benefit of getting this information, though, from the counselors is that they've been meeting with your student, they give us a little bit more information, and then that referral gets passed right along to our access team that then reaches out to you. So a little bit less work on your part for that, but there are kind of multiple avenues to get to us, but as they described, kind of that more intensive level of need.
As we shift to kind of a next portion of the program here, if you have a question, if you would just maybe hold your card in the air and Mr. Shockley or Mrs. Rodkey will come around and take it from you and we'll see if we can get to any questions. So again, if you've got questions, they'll collect them and bring them up. We have some students who work with outside therapists or families who are looking for other types of therapy, and this website is also, I know it's very long, but if you just were to search for Hendricks Health Partnership Mental Wellness Providers, you can look, and I'm going to put down my mic for a second. Well, this may or may not work for me. And so this website has a ton of information on it. and you are able to search. But there's a list of providers that are on this website. This is Rocky's going to see if she can help me. Can you see if you can scroll down on there at all? And if we can't get it, just trust us that if you type that in, you will get it. And again, I've listed it at the bottom. But we have students who see private therapists, so there's some big things here, and then providers in and around Hendricks County by topic too, specialized topic. We can collaborate with outside providers. For example, if there's a release of information that's shared in between the school counselor and a private therapist, or sometimes with our social workers, shared that way. We have a unique partnership with Cummins in the school district, and so we're able to provide school-based therapy, so therapists on site like Jamie who work with our students. It's awesome. So you are able to look there also, and we welcome that outside support for students and are happy to be as involved as in interacting as you see as appropriate. It helps us to know what's going on with students, so we appreciate it when you do share that information. I will kind of look through these questions real quick. Do you guys have anything else you want to make sure you mention at this time? You guys good? Okay. Here's one. Tell me what steps I can take when my student is being cyberbullied, or I think that they're being cyberbullied. Drama on social media, or really negative things on social media. What thoughts do you have for parents?
I would say definitely contact the counselor, and we would want to find out a lot more about that. We definitely want to try to take care of that as quickly as possible. I would encourage, we would probably have the assistant principal get involved somewhat to find out what's going on there. And we would try to encourage that student to maybe get off, one thing to get off social media for just a little bit so we can kind of figure out what's going on there, but we want to try to nip that in the bud, so that would be something we would want you to contact us as soon as possible.
And social media can be a source for good. It can also be very problematic. And one of the best things I think kids can do is find boundaries. Did you pick up the mic to say something, Brittany?
No, not necessarily.
Okay, all right.
But I will add this. This is a really important thing for parents to be checking in with. I almost cannot have a session with a student without social media coming up. This is a big deal. It's definitely impacting our students' mental health and wellness. And as Mrs. Bodie just said, there is good to it, but there's also a lot of room for some really unhealthy, bad behaviors to happen. So as parents, as guardians at home, the more you can check in, the more you can be involved, the more you can be in the know of how they're engaging online, and if that's safe behavior, that's huge. Because the reality is by the time it gets to us here at school, there's only so much we can do. This is a choice to engage on a private site that's not owned by the school. So if it's a behavior, a cyberbullying behavior between two students, we can step in, but that's not always the case. Sometimes it's with another person who's not a student here. So we're still here to help and support that however we can. But yeah, it's an important conversation to make sure we're having at home too.
We know one of the biggest areas of concern for our students that's self-report, and we've asked our kids, we ask on surveys, they've taken the Panorama SEL screener, they indicate anxiety, and parents know it too. When we've surveyed you in the past, in the last couple of years, it's interesting, you and your students, and I know it might not have been your kids specifically, but our high school parents, our high school students are pretty well aligned that anxiety is a big concern. What are some things we do here at school to try to navigate students who are dealing with anxiety? And this could be some things we have through guidance, the school counselors in our guidance department, as well as small group.
One thing that's helpful in the guidance office, we have the mindfulness space, where it's kind of like a quiet area in the office where a student can come down and just kind of chill for a little while and try to just work on their, I'm sorry, I'm stumbling here, but just try to relax a little bit and get their anxiety under control so they're at a point where they can return to class. Generally, those are in the front of the office, and we do encourage students to take advantage of that if that becomes a need.
Yeah, it's a space where students can come down and self-regulate, so just give themselves a pause if that's what they need. We've created a kind of private space there for them to do that. And then the good thing is that they're right there in the guidance office. If that problem becomes a higher need, they can be connected to a variety of people. I also want to say that we are doing universal screeners, something called Panorama, where we're looking at the social and emotional well-being of our students. So that's a place where we're getting some of this information too. And all of the groups that are developed here at school are based on what students have said their needs are. So we are constantly creating new groups based on what students are reporting to us. So that's something to keep in mind too.
A couple of other, I think, questions that I can help answer. Are there similar programs at the middle schools? Yes, there are similar programs at the middle schools. Are the small group sessions during the day or after school? They're during the school day. We do try to minimize the amount of time that kids are out of class. We try. We also know this is a key need for some of our kids, so we do our best. And I will say also for our students who are working with private therapists, we do ask that you try to minimize the amount of time that they miss school. So, if you're able to schedule the appointments, if you're able to do that in such a way that they can get to most of their classes, that's great. Or if you have to take them out for an appointment, we really encourage you not to miss the whole day if that's avoidable. I think I've hit most of the key questions here. Any closing words from our panel here?
I'm just really pleased to see a good turnout tonight, and I'm really excited that we have the support here at Avon that we do for the mental wellness programs that we do have. And so I think it's a testament to Avon and Mrs. Bodie and these ladies for the time that they put into this over the last several years. And so I'm very appreciative of that.
Yeah, I want to thank you all for showing up. We show up when we care about something, so the fact that you're here tonight is really important and valuable. So thank you for taking the time to come early and be here to listen. And please know, like we've said a bunch tonight, reach out. Like, that is what we're here for. As Mrs. Creed mentioned, this is so cool that our school has this. There are a lot of schools that do not have this amount or these layered supports for students. And it shows how much we value that, and I can tell you from the day in and day out work that our team does that it is something that we really value. We want to support you as families and all of our students too.
Thank you so very much for coming. We hope you have an amazing back to school night.